So as you heard, today's gospel passage references the word for welcome 6 times. And then it references offering a glass of cold water to drink, which is another form of welcome. So 7 times it encourages us to think about welcome. But talking to you about being a people of welcome felt a little bit like preaching to the choir. I have been on the receiving end of your welcome, and it is amazing. And that doesn't mean there's not more we can do. There's always more that we can do. But our welcome is not the focus of today's message. The context of this passage suggested a slightly different focus. Today's gospel passage gives us the last little bit of instruction that Jesus gave the disciples as he was preparing them to do his work in the world. If we look back in Matthew, we see at the end of chapter 9, Jesus looks at the crowds of people before him, and he sees them as sheep without a shepherd. So he talks to the disciples about the abundant harvest before them and the need for laborers. Then in chapter 10, he speaks to the disciples, preparing these laborers for the task before them, this reaping of the harvest. And in today's passage, when Jesus says to the disciples, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me," that feels like another way of saying, "Hey, disciples, as you set out to do the work that I have for you, remember, this work is not about you." In this passage, Jesus isn't talking about the disciples being welcoming. He's talking about the disciples being welcomed by the sheep who lack the shepherd. We could read this passage a couple of ways. Jesus could be preparing these laborers for those situations when they might not be welcomed. He could be saying to them, if the people hate you, it's not you they're hating. It's me, Jesus, that they're hating. So if you're rejected, don't take it personally. Dust off your feet and keep going. Or he could be preparing them for those situations where they might be welcomed and get a big head about the warmth of the welcome. He might be saying, hey, if these people love you, it's not you they're loving, it's me. So if you're loved, don't get too caught up patting yourself on the back. Dust off your feet and keep going. Like the disciples, we are called to do the work of Jesus by living out the great love of God to everyone. And however we are received in doing that work, we can call forward this passage to our minds, both as a source of comfort and as a warning that the work is not about us. The work is about Jesus. The work is always about Jesus. And that should give us the courage to speak of our experience of God to others, to speak the truth of our lives with Jesus to people in our midst, because whether we're sent away or we're received is not about us. And this should also give us pause as we do this work to make sure that our work is coming from a place of loving God and our desire for others to experience that love too. It shouldn't come from our own desire to be recognized or appreciated. Remembering that our work as disciples is not about us should also help us to worry less, not just about how we're received, but about our lives generally. We worry about what tomorrow will bring. We worry about whether there will be enough. We worry about whether we are enough. But that worry and all the other things that we worry about means that our eyes are not on Jesus. They're on ourselves. A long time ago, in 2003, I took up riding a bike for the first time in my adult life. I had ridden as a kid, but not since then, so I was a little uneasy about getting back on the bike. But I took up riding so that I could go ride with my friends and they could teach me where the good roads are, and so that I could get comfortable doing something that felt very uncomfortable at first. And that thing became my favorite way to spend time with my friends. One of the first things I was told is that when riding, you are told not to you have to notice the potholes in the road, right? You don't want to ride on the potholes in the road, so you have to see them. But it's important not to focus your eyes on them, because if you focus your eyes on them, you will ride onto that pothole. So your job is to notice in your peripheral vision the thing that is the danger point to it to alert the people behind you that there's something there, and keep your eyes on the road ahead so that you can keep going. And that little bit of cycling instruction helps me to think about a life with Jesus. The road is our life with Jesus. And we are so grateful to be on this road. It is so much fun to be on this road with our friends, with our people who love God the way that we do. And it's so much fun to share that love with people who are thinking about getting on the road with us. And the potholes are all the things in the world that we worry about. And when we're on this road with Jesus, part of our task is not to get fixated on the potholes, and instead to focus our eyes ahead on Jesus for as long as we get to be on this road. And in a sense, when we're focused on Jesus, we are the disciples in today's gospel passage. And when we're focused on the potholes, we are perhaps more like the sheep without a shepherd in those moments. The good news is that the sheep without a shepherd, and those of us who sometimes act like a sheep without a shepherd, are so loved by God that Jesus raised up and continues to raise up disciples to do the work of reaching them. Jesus reminds us that the work of ministry that we all share, and remember at Christ Lutheran, every member is a minister. This is our work to do. The work of ministry is God's work. It's God's work that we get to be a part of. This house, this church, is God's house. And the welcome in this place always comes from Jesus himself. Thanks be to God.